The city buzzed with life outside, but inside the small apartment, Emma's world was blissfully quiet. Tomorrow was her wedding day, the culmination of years of love, trust, and shared dreams with her fiancé, Ryan. As she stood on the balcony, watching the stars twinkle above, a strange feeling of unease crept into her heart. She couldn't shake the sense that something was off, but she dismissed it as pre-wedding jitters. Yet, the nagging doubt persisted, a whisper in the back of her mind that tonight might be the last time everything felt perfect. Ryan was in the next room, practicing his vows, his voice low and earnest. Emma leaned against the doorframe, listening to the man she loved speak words that were meant for her ears alone. She smiled, but that lingering sense of unease only grew stronger. What if something went wrong? What if tomorrow didn't go as planned? She shook her head, trying to dispel the dark thoughts. Ryan had always been her rock, her constant in a world full of uncertainties. There was nothing to fear, she told herself. As the night wore on, Ryan joined her in the living room, his face lit with excitement. "Ready for tomorrow?" he asked, pulling her close. Emma nodded, but the words caught in her throat. She tried to push the anxiety aside, focusing on the warmth of his embrace. They talked about their future, about the life they would build together, but Emma couldn't help but feel like she was holding on to a dream that was about to slip through her fingers. She didn't know why, but something inside her warned that this night was special, the last moment of peace before everything changed. They finally said goodnight, promising to meet at the altar the next day. As Emma lay in bed, she stared at her wedding dress hanging by the window, bathed in the soft glow of the moonlight. It should have filled her with joy, but instead, it felt like a fragile hope, something that could be shattered with the slightest touch. Her thoughts drifted to the strange feeling she couldn't shake, the sense that something monumental was about to happen, something that would change their lives forever. Emma's eyes closed, and she fell into a restless sleep, unaware that her life was about to take a turn she could never have imagined. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, and Emma awoke with a start, her heart pounding. She had dreamed of Ryan, of him standing at the edge of a cliff, looking back at her with a sad smile before stepping into the abyss. The remnants of the dream clung to her as she reached out for him, but her hand met only empty sheets. Panic surged through her as she sat up, calling his name, expecting to hear his voice from the bathroom or kitchen. But the apartment was eerily silent, devoid of the man who should have been there beside her. Emma's anxiety spiked as she searched the apartment, each empty room amplifying her fear. Ryan was gone, without a note, a message, or any indication of where he might be. His suit still hung in the closet, his shoes neatly placed by the door. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Emma's mind raced as she tried to rationalize his disappearance. Maybe he had gone out for a last-minute errand or to clear his head. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. Desperation clawed at her as she frantically dialed his number, but each call went straight to voicemail. She reached out to friends, family, anyone who might know where Ryan was, but no one had seen or heard from him. The police were called, and Emma found herself recounting every detail of their last night together, but nothing seemed out of place. No arguments, no signs of distress, just a quiet night filled with love and anticipation. But as the day wore on, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Ryan's disappearance was more than just cold feet. There was something else at play, something darker. Days bled into weeks, and Ryan's absence became a gaping wound in Emma's life. The police investigation yielded nothing, and her hired private investigator, though thorough, kept hitting dead ends. It was as if Ryan had been erased from existence. The life they had planned together was now a haunting reminder of what was lost, and Emma's once vibrant world grew darker with each passing day. She pored over every detail of Ryan's life, searching for a clue, something that could explain his disappearance, but the truth remained elusive. As Emma delved deeper into Ryan's past, she began to uncover pieces of his life that didn't add up. Strange transactions, unexplained absences, and vague mentions of people she had never heard of before. The more she uncovered, the less she recognized the man she had planned to marry. It was as if Ryan had been living a double life, one that he had kept carefully hidden from her. The realization that she might not have known Ryan as well as she thought was devastating, but it also fueled her determination to find him. She needed answers, no matter how painful they might be. Emma's obsession with finding Ryan consumed her. She barely slept, her nights filled with nightmares of Ryan calling out to her from the darkness, begging for help that she couldn't provide. Her friends and family tried to intervene, urging her to move on, but she couldn't let go. The mystery of Ryan's disappearance had become her entire world, and she was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. She knew deep down that Ryan was out there, somewhere, and she wouldn't rest until she found him. Just as Emma was beginning to lose hope, her phone rang one night, jolting her from a fitful sleep. The number was unfamiliar, but something in her gut told her to answer. The voice on the other end was cold, detached, and it sent a chill down her spine. "Stop looking for Ryan," the voice warned. "If you know what's good for you, you'll leave this alone." The call ended abruptly, leaving Emma trembling with fear and confusion. Who was this person? How did they know about her search for Ryan? And why were they trying to scare her off? Emma immediately contacted the police, but they were unable to trace the call. The detective handling her case suggested that it might have been a prank, but Emma wasn't convinced. The call felt too calculated, too real. It only deepened her resolve to find out what had happened to Ryan, even if it meant putting herself in danger. But now, she had to face the terrifying possibility that Ryan's disappearance was part of something much larger and more sinister than she had imagined. The fear of being watched, of being hunted, began to take hold of Emma. She started noticing unfamiliar cars parked near her apartment, shadowy figures lingering on street corners. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside her window sent her heart racing. But instead of backing down, Emma used the fear to fuel her determination. Whoever was behind that call wanted her to stop, which meant she was getting close. She wouldn't let them scare her into submission. Ryan was out there, and she was going to find him, no matter the cost. Emma's life spiraled into chaos as her obsession with finding Ryan deepened. The once neatly organized apartment became a cluttered mess of papers, maps, and photos, each one a potential clue in the puzzle of his disappearance. Sleep was a distant memory, and her health began to deteriorate as she pushed herself to the brink, refusing to rest until she had answers. Her friends and family grew increasingly worried, but Emma pushed them away, convinced that they couldn't understand the depth of her love for Ryan, or the desperation that drove her. The deeper Emma dug, the more disturbing the picture of Ryan's life became. Bank statements with unexplained transactions, phone calls to numbers that led to dead ends, and documents that hinted at a life Emma knew nothing about. It was becoming clear that Ryan had been hiding something from her, something big. The realization that the man she loved had kept such significant secrets from her was a bitter pill to swallow, but Emma was too far gone to turn back now. She needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed her. Emma's mental and emotional state deteriorated as she became more isolated, consumed by her need to find Ryan. The once bright, loving woman had become a shadow of her former self, haunted by the ghosts of her past and the unknown dangers of the present. She began to question everything, every memory, every moment they had shared, wondering if any of it had been real. But no matter how dark her thoughts became, Emma couldn't let go of the hope that Ryan was still out there, waiting for her to find him. One night, while sifting through a stack of Ryan's old belongings, Emma made a discovery that would change everything. Hidden beneath a false bottom in one of his desk drawers was a small bundle of documents, meticulously folded and secured with a rubber band. Emma's hands shook as she untied the bundle, revealing a series of passports, each bearing Ryan's photograph but with different names. Alongside them were bank statements from offshore accounts and correspondence in a language she didn't recognize. It was as if Ryan had been leading a double life, one that Emma had been completely unaware of. The shock of the discovery left Emma reeling. Who was this man she had planned to marry? The Ryan she knew was kind, loving, and honest, but the evidence before her suggested a man with deep secrets, a man involved in something dark and dangerous. As she pored over the documents, trying to piece together the truth, Emma felt a growing sense of dread. What had Ryan been involved in? And more importantly, why had he kept it from her? The more she uncovered, the more she realized that Ryan's disappearance wasn't just about cold feet or second thoughts, it was about survival. The documents led Emma to believe that Ryan had been running from something, or someone, far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The realization filled her with fear, but also with a renewed determination to find him. She couldn't let the man she loved disappear without a trace, not when he was clearly in danger. But as she delved deeper into the mystery of Ryan's life, Emma began to realize that the truth might be more than she could handle. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined, and the closer she got to the truth, the more dangerous her search became. Emma's search took an unexpected turn when she was approached by a man named Jack, who claimed to know Ryan. Jack was a tall, imposing figure with a hardened demeanor and eyes that seemed to see right through her. He told Emma that he had worked with Ryan in the past, but that their paths had diverged when Ryan decided to leave the life they had been living behind. Jack was vague about the details, but it was clear that he knew things about Ryan that Emma didn't. He offered to help her find Ryan, but warned her that the journey would be perilous. Emma was hesitant to trust Jack, but she was desperate for answers. She agreed to work with him, hoping that he could provide the information she needed to find Ryan. As they began their investigation together, Emma quickly realized that Jack was far more experienced in this world of shadows and secrets than she was. He guided her through the dangerous underworld that Ryan had been a part of, teaching her how to navigate its treacherous waters. But as they grew closer, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that Jack wasn't telling her everything. Despite her reservations, Emma found herself relying more and more on Jack as they uncovered clues about Ryan's whereabouts. But the closer they got, the more Emma began to suspect that Jack had his own agenda. He was always one step ahead, always knew just where to look, and seemed to have connections that ran deeper than he let on. Emma's trust in him wavered as she began to wonder if Jack was truly an ally, or if he was leading her into a trap. The tension between them grew as Emma struggled to figure out who she could really trust in a world where deception was the norm. With Jack's guidance, Emma ventured deeper into the world that had ensnared Ryan, a world of illegal activities, betrayals, and constant danger. They uncovered evidence that Ryan had been involved in something far more sinister than Emma had imagined, an organization with ties to powerful, dangerous people who would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. As they closed in on the truth, it became clear that the organization was aware of their search and was intent on stopping them at any cost. Emma's every move was now under surveillance, and the threats against her life grew more imminent with each passing day. The tension mounted as Emma and Jack found themselves the targets of a relentless pursuit. They narrowly escaped several deadly encounters, and each time, the danger seemed to escalate. Emma's fear was palpable, but so was her resolve. She couldn't stop now, not when she was so close to finding Ryan. But every step forward brought new risks, and Emma began to question whether she was putting herself and Ryan in more danger by continuing. The organization's reach was vast, and they were playing a game with deadly stakes. In one particularly harrowing moment, Emma believed she was on the verge of finding Ryan. They had tracked him to a remote location, only to find it abandoned, with signs of a struggle. The hope that had driven Emma for so long was nearly crushed as she realized how close she had been, only to have Ryan slip through her fingers once again. The setbacks took a toll on her, but they also fueled her determination. Emma refused to give up, even as the walls closed in around her. She knew that finding Ryan meant confronting the darkest corners of this world, and she was prepared to do whatever it took. The relentless pursuit of Ryan finally led Emma and Jack to a safe house hidden deep in the woods, a place that Ryan had used to hide from the organization. The journey to the safe house was fraught with danger, and they had to move carefully to avoid detection. When they finally arrived, Emma's heart pounded with a mixture of hope and fear. This was the closest she had been to finding Ryan, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The safe house appeared deserted when they arrived, but as they searched the rooms, Emma found a letter left behind by Ryan. The letter, written in haste, explained that Ryan had been on the run for months, trying to escape the clutches of the organization. He revealed that he had been involved in their illegal activities, but that he had been trying to break free, to start a new life with Emma. The letter ended with a cryptic message: "If you still want to find me, you know where to go." It was a clue, but also a warning, and Emma knew that following it would lead her deeper into danger. The revelation was both heartbreaking and terrifying. Emma had suspected that Ryan was involved in something dark, but the reality was far worse than she had imagined. He had been living a life of deception, one that had put both of them in grave danger. But even as the truth began to unravel, Emma's love for Ryan remained unshaken. She was more determined than ever to find him, to save him from the nightmare that had consumed their lives. But she knew that the path ahead was fraught with peril, and that the deeper she went, the more dangerous it would become. Emma and Jack's search for Ryan intensified after finding his letter. The organization was closing in on them, and every day brought new dangers. They were constantly on the move, changing locations, and trying to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. The tension between them grew as they raced against time, each day a battle to survive. Emma's determination never wavered, but the relentless pursuit was taking its toll on her physically and emotionally. The chase reached a critical point when they tracked Ryan to an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. Emma's heart raced as they approached, hoping against hope that this would be the moment she finally found him. But as they entered the building, it became clear that they had walked into a trap. The organization's enforcers were waiting for them, and a fierce battle ensued. Jack fought valiantly to protect Emma, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. In the chaos, Emma was separated from Jack, and for a moment, she feared that this was the end. But just as all seemed lost, Emma spotted Ryan through the chaos. He was alive, but barely recognizable, thin, battered, and haunted by the months on the run. Their eyes met, and in that moment, everything else faded away. But the reunion was short-lived as they were forced to flee, narrowly escaping the building as it erupted in gunfire. The chase had brought them together, but it had also revealed the full extent of the danger they were in. Emma knew that they were running out of time, and that their next move would be their most dangerous yet. The harrowing escape left Emma and Ryan on the run, their lives hanging by a thread. But for the first time in months, they were together. The relief of finding Ryan was overwhelming, but the reality of their situation quickly set in. They were still being hunted, and the organization wouldn't stop until they were both dead. They found temporary refuge in a secluded cabin where they could catch their breath and plan their next move. But even in the quiet of the cabin, the tension was palpable. They had escaped with their lives, but for how long? As they regrouped, Ryan began to share more of what he had been through. He told Emma about the sacrifices he had made, the decisions that had led him down this dark path. It was a story of deception, betrayal, and survival, and it left Emma reeling. Ryan had been forced to make unimaginable choices to protect her, choices that had cost him everything. But even as he recounted the horrors of his past, there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes, a hope that they could still have a future together. Emma clung to that hope as they planned their next move. They knew that they couldn't stay in the cabin for long, but it gave them a moment of respite, a chance to reconnect and find strength in each other. The danger was still very real, but for the first time, they had a plan. They would confront the organization head-on, using the information Ryan had gathered during his time on the run. It was a risky plan, but it was their only chance at freedom. As they prepared to leave, Emma felt a renewed sense of determination. They had come this far, and they weren't going to give up now. As they prepared to execute their plan, Ryan handed Emma a letter, one he had written in case they didn't make it. The letter was filled with everything Ryan hadn't been able to say, the truth about his involvement with the organization, the decisions he had made to protect her, and the guilt he carried for dragging her into this nightmare. It was a confession, but also a plea for forgiveness. Ryan knew that their journey was far from over, and he wanted Emma to understand why he had done the things he had done. The letter was a stark reminder of the danger they were in, but it also gave Emma a sense of closure. She finally understood the depth of Ryan's love for her, and the lengths he had gone to keep her safe. But it also left her with a heavy burden, the knowledge that their fight was far from over, and that they might not make it out alive. The weight of the letter pressed down on her, but it also steeled her resolve. She wasn't going to let Ryan's sacrifices be in vain. They would face the organization together, and they would fight until the end. Emma kept the letter close as they made their way to the final confrontation. It was a constant reminder of what was at stake, but also of the love that had brought them this far. The road ahead was fraught with danger, but Emma knew that she wasn't alone. They were in this together, and no matter what happened, they would face it side by side. The letter was Ryan's way of saying goodbye, but Emma was determined to ensure that it wouldn't be the last word they shared. With the information Ryan had gathered, they tracked down the leader of the organization to a remote compound hidden deep in the mountains. The journey to the compound was perilous, and they had to move quickly to avoid detection. As they approached the compound, Emma's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the final confrontation that would determine their fate. But even as they drew closer, the danger became more palpable. The compound was heavily guarded, and getting inside would be no easy task. Ryan had a plan, one that relied on deception and quick thinking, but the risks were enormous. They couldn't afford any mistakes, one wrong move, and it would all be over. Emma's fear was palpable, but so was her determination. They had come too far to turn back now. The information Ryan had gathered suggested that the leader of the organization held the key to their freedom, but getting to him would require them to navigate a labyrinth of danger. As they infiltrated the compound, the tension mounted with each step. Emma and Ryan worked together, relying on each other's strengths to overcome the obstacles in their path. The compound was a maze of corridors and locked doors, but they moved with purpose, driven by the need to end this once and for all. The closer they got to their target, the more dangerous the situation became. But Emma refused to give up. They had come too far, faced too much, to let fear stand in their way. This was their chance to take down the organization and reclaim their lives. As they reached the heart of the compound, Emma and Ryan found themselves in a large, dimly lit room filled with monitors and surveillance equipment. The leader of the organization was there, flanked by armed guards, his expression cold and calculating. He had been expecting them, and the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. The leader's presence was intimidating, but Emma and Ryan stood their ground, ready to face whatever came next. The leader taunted them, revealing that he had known about their plans all along. He explained that Ryan's attempts to break free from the organization had been futile, that he had been under surveillance from the very beginning. The realization that they had been playing right into the leader's hands was devastating, but Emma refused to back down. She demanded answers, wanting to know why Ryan had been targeted, why their lives had been torn apart. The leader's response was chilling. He revealed that Ryan had been chosen for a reason, that his skills and knowledge made him invaluable to the organization. But when Ryan tried to leave, they couldn't let him go. The leader made it clear that there was no escape, that Ryan's life, and now Emma's, were forfeit. The revelation was a crushing blow, but it also solidified Emma's resolve. She wasn't going to let the leader control their fate. She and Ryan had come too far to be defeated now. They would fight, no matter the odds, and they would find a way to escape the darkness that had consumed their lives. The tension in the room reached its peak as Emma and Ryan faced off against the leader. The air was thick with fear and adrenaline, and Emma knew that this was their last chance. The leader's guards moved to surround them, but Ryan was ready. With a swift motion, he triggered a series of explosive charges he had planted earlier, creating a chaotic explosion that threw the guards off balance. The room filled with smoke and debris, and Emma and Ryan seized the opportunity to make their move. In the ensuing chaos, they managed to overpower the guards, but the leader remained calm, watching them with a cold, calculating gaze. Emma felt a surge of anger as she confronted him, demanding answers, but the leader only smiled. He revealed that Ryan had been more than just a pawn in their game, that he had been chosen for a reason, and that reason was about to be revealed. The leader's cryptic words sent a chill down Emma's spine, but before she could press him further, the building's alarms began to blare. Realizing that their time was running out, Emma and Ryan made a split-second decision to leave the leader behind and escape the compound. The building was in chaos, with guards and staff scrambling to evacuate. Emma and Ryan navigated the labyrinthine corridors, dodging bullets and explosions as they made their way to the exit. But even as they fled, the leader's words echoed in Emma's mind. What had he meant? What was the secret that Ryan had been keeping from her all along? The questions gnawed at her as they escaped into the night, but for now, all that mattered was getting out alive. The adrenaline of the escape began to wear off as Emma and Ryan found themselves hiding in a dense forest, far from the compound. The night was dark and silent, save for the distant sounds of sirens and helicopters searching for them. As they caught their breath, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The leader's final words had unsettled her, and she needed answers. She turned to Ryan, demanding to know what the leader had meant, what secret he had been hiding from her. Ryan hesitated, his face shadowed in the dim moonlight. He confessed that there was something he hadn't told her, something that could change everything. He revealed that he hadn't just been a member of the organization, he had been a key figure, someone they had relied on for their most secret of operations. But when he realized the true nature of their work, he had tried to leave, to protect Emma from the darkness he had been a part of. The leader's words had been a final warning, a reminder that Ryan's past would always haunt him, and that they would never truly be free. The revelation hit Emma like a punch to the gut. She had known that Ryan's past was dark, but she hadn't realized just how deep the darkness went. The man she loved had been involved in things she couldn't even begin to comprehend, and now those decisions were coming back to haunt them both. But even as the weight of the truth pressed down on her, Emma knew that she couldn't abandon Ryan. They were in this together, and they would face whatever came next, no matter how terrifying it might be. Emma and Ryan's next move was crucial. They knew that they couldn't keep running forever, and that they had to find a way to end this once and for all. But the leader's words had left them both shaken, and the trust between them was now on shaky ground. Emma was faced with an impossible choice: continue to trust Ryan, despite the secrets he had kept from her, or cut ties and try to find a way out on her own. The weight of the decision was almost too much to bear, but Emma knew that she had to choose, and that whatever choice she made would determine their fate. In the end, Emma chose to stay with Ryan. Despite everything, she couldn't turn her back on the man she loved. But the decision came with a heavy price. They would have to face the consequences of Ryan's past together, knowing that their lives were now intertwined with the darkness he had tried so hard to escape. The choice was a gamble, one that could either save them or destroy them, but Emma was willing to take that risk. She couldn't let fear dictate her life any longer. As they prepared to make their final stand, Emma and Ryan confronted the reality of their situation. They knew that the organization wouldn't stop until they were both dead, and that their only chance at survival was to strike first. It was a dangerous plan, one that required them to outthink and outmaneuver a powerful enemy. But they were determined to see it through, no matter the cost. The choice had been made, and now there was no turning back. They would face the darkness together, and they would fight until the end. With their plan in place, Emma and Ryan set out to confront the leader of the organization one last time. They knew that this was their final chance to take control of their fate, and they were prepared to risk everything. The journey back to the compound was fraught with danger, but they moved with purpose, driven by the need to end this nightmare once and for all. The stakes were higher than ever, and the tension between them was palpable. But they had come too far to give up now. The compound was heavily guarded, but Emma and Ryan had learned from their previous mistakes. They moved through the shadows, avoiding detection as they made their way to the leader's office. The plan was simple: confront the leader, demand answers, and force him to call off the hunt. But as they entered the office, they realized that things were about to take a darker turn. The leader was waiting for them, flanked by his most loyal enforcers, and the look in his eyes told Emma that he had been expecting them. The confrontation was tense, the air thick with the anticipation of violence. Emma and Ryan demanded answers, but the leader only smiled, revealing that he had one final card to play. He revealed that Ryan had been a pawn in a much larger game, one that extended far beyond the organization. The leader hinted at a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of power, a web of deceit and corruption that had ensnared them both. The revelation was shocking, but it also gave Emma and Ryan the leverage they needed. They threatened to expose the truth, to bring the entire operation crashing down if the leader didn't let them go. The leader's smile faded as he realized that Emma and Ryan were serious. The truth they had uncovered was a threat not just to the organization, but to everyone involved in the conspiracy. The leader knew that he couldn't let them leave alive, but he also knew that if they were killed, the truth would come out. The tension in the room reached its peak as the leader weighed his options, and Emma and Ryan prepared for the worst. But just as the situation was about to explode, the leader made a surprising move. He offered them a deal. He would let them go, but only if they disappeared completely. They would have to give up everything: their lives, their identities, and their pasts. In exchange, the leader would call off the hunt and allow them to live in peace. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but Emma and Ryan knew that it was their only chance at survival. The truth they had uncovered was too dangerous, and they couldn't risk bringing it to light. The decision was painful, but it was the only way to ensure their safety. As they left the compound, the weight of the truth pressed down on them. They had come so close to exposing the conspiracy, but in the end, they had chosen to protect themselves. It was a decision that would haunt them for the rest of their lives, but it was the only choice they could make. The truth was out there, buried in the shadows, but for now, they had to focus on their survival. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Emma and Ryan's final escape was a bittersweet victory. They had survived, but at what cost? They were forced to leave everything behind, to start over in a new country with new identities. The life they had once known was gone, replaced by a fragile hope that they could find peace in the shadows. The journey to their new home was long and difficult, filled with uncertainty and fear. But as they settled into their new lives, they found solace in each other, in the love that had brought them this far. The final escape was not without its challenges. They were constantly looking over their shoulders, wondering if the organization would find them, if the truth they had uncovered would ever come to light. But for now, they were safe. They had managed to outmaneuver their enemies, to carve out a small piece of happiness in a world that had tried to destroy them. The road ahead was uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. The final escape was not the end of their journey, but it was a new beginning. As they looked out at the horizon, Emma and Ryan knew that they would never be truly free. The truth they had uncovered would always be a shadow over their lives, a reminder of the darkness they had escaped. But they also knew that they had each other, and that was enough. They had survived the impossible, and they were ready to build a new life, one free from the fear and danger that had haunted them for so long. The final escape was a victory, but it was also a reminder that the fight was never really over. As Emma and Ryan settled into their new lives, they began to say goodbye to the past. The memories of what they had been through were still fresh, but they knew that they had to let go if they were going to move forward. The goodbye was a painful process, filled with moments of doubt and regret. But it was also a necessary one. They had to leave behind the lives they had known, the people they had been, and embrace the new future they were creating together. The goodbye was not without its challenges. They were forced to confront the realities of their new lives, the sacrifices they had made, and the decisions that had brought them to this point. But as they looked at each other, they knew that they had made the right choice. The love that had carried them through the darkest of times was still there, stronger than ever. They had said goodbye to their old lives, but they had also found a new beginning, one filled with hope and possibility. As they stood together, watching the sun set over the ocean, Emma and Ryan knew that the goodbye was not the end. It was a new chapter in their lives, one that they were ready to embrace. The road ahead was still uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. The goodbye was a difficult process, but it was also a necessary one. They had found each other in the darkness, and now they were ready to build a new life, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. The days turned into weeks, and Emma and Ryan slowly began to rebuild their lives in their new home. The country was foreign to them, but they embraced it, finding solace in the unfamiliarity. The scars of their past were still there, but they no longer defined them. They had been given a second chance, and they were determined to make the most of it. The love that had brought them through the darkest of times was now the foundation of their new life, and they drew strength from each other as they faced the challenges of starting over. Their new life was simple, far removed from the chaos and danger of the world they had left behind. They found joy in the small things, in the warmth of the sun, the sound of the ocean, and the peace that came with knowing they were finally safe. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, they were able to look forward with hope. They knew that they would never forget the past, but they also knew that it didn't have to define them. They were free to write their own story, and they were determined to make it one of love, hope, and happiness. As they stood together, watching the sun set over the ocean, Emma felt a sense of contentment wash over her. They had been through so much, faced so many dangers, but they had made it through together. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had also brought them closer than ever. And as they looked out at the horizon, they knew that the future was theirs to create. They had found their new beginning, and they were ready to embrace it, hand in hand, with love and hope in their hearts.